The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and I have a secret. And it's a very simple secret I want to share with everybody. Trouble is, it's very difficult to share it, because not everybody wants to know it. I've had this secret ever since I can remember, since I was a little tiny nipper. That's English for a small kid. And I didn't know I had it when I had it, and I didn't know anybody else didn't have it when they didn't have it. I grew up with this secret, not knowing that nobody knew, and not knowing that everybody was searching for it. Not everybody, but a lot of people were searching for it. And it's taken me years and years to articulate what it is. But even then, it's very difficult to hear it. And some people, when they hear it, will put their hands over their ears as if they'd heard something horrible, frightening, terrifying, maddening. Who was it said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free"? Well, I have the truth to share with you. Well, that's going to disturb a lot of people already, you see, because they already think they have it. And the truth that I have to share with you isn't verses and chapters, because you can swallow that stuff from morning to night. You can eat it, drink it, stuff it in your ear, in your nose with a rubber hose, and it still won't help you. You can imbibe it. What? I'm going to spend the next 5 sessions, one evening with this audience actually, 2.5 hours, trying to explain what the secret is, because if you could understand what it is, if you dare to understand its simplicity and dare to practice it, to focus your mind in such a way that the secret starts to work for you, then you're going to see a change in your life that you won't believe your own eyes. And you're going to start unlearning everything you ever learned. And whatever you learned that you didn't understand that was understandable, you're going to start understanding it, and it's going to start working for you. It just won't be memories. It's going to be a living truth, a living thing inside you. Now, I'm going to give a very small outline on what this is for my new audiences, for new people. And I know that the older people who've been watching this program will appreciate it too, because every time I say it, whatever it is, I keep repeating the same thing over and over again in a different way. You're going to get new insight to more insight. Truth is such that if you just have one word of it, and you understand what that one word is, or one line, a sentence, next week when you read that same line or hear that same line with the experience of it, it means something more. It's like an idea within an idea within an idea within an idea, and you're going in and it's coming out. You're going into that light, and the light is coming into you. And it's a slow learning. It's a discovery, an unfolding process. There are dangers, pitfalls that keep you from this growingness. And I'll tell you what it is. First of all, I want to explore it from the negative, if you don't mind. Because I can't tell you what the positive is. Because you have to experience. You can't take a blind man and say, look, there's a bird flying. He can't imagine what a bird flies because he's never seen it. That's the task I have for you. I've got to take blind people and make them see. People who are blind spiritually. People who think they know, and they're so caught up in their own egotistical idea of knowing that they can't see they don't know. That they're literally asleep in their own knowing, in their own fantasies, in their own false belief systems, in their own emotionality, lost in their head somewhere. When I was a little boy, I remember lying asleep at night. Well, I wasn't asleep, I was dozing and I was thinking. There's my thoughts. Ah, there they are. But there's something beyond the wall of thought. I knew that I could almost feel like light impulses. Something saying just beyond that wall. It wasn't those words, of course. As if to say, just beyond that wall there's a new adventure. There's something. And I almost wanted to reach out and touch it. And I've been doing that ever since. I've been reaching out and crossing that great wall of thought. And that's the thing that you have to learn, number one. Now, I expect to be interrupted, because otherwise it's just going to be a lecture, and I don't want to bore you. I want you to say, well, what is this thing? Because you know it already, because most of you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Who knows what this thing is? Do you really know what this thing is? Could you put a name to it? Anybody? It's the light. But just like there is within us a way of moving and having our being that is independent from reacting like animals. Now, animals are animals because they live out of this experience of this world. They react, they think, they react, they feel, they think, and they think, they feel, they act, don't they? It's a very fast reaction. They react, and then they thoughts, where do I move, where do I run? Not so many words, and then they run. They react and feel, think, act. Now, what does that do? It bypasses, if you are a human being, you have another way of functioning other than an animal. Now, all you've ever known is reactions. You know, getting upset, getting your feelings hurt, and then functioning out of those emotions, and you find yourself tormented. You find yourself doing dumb things. You find yourself being controlled by people. You find yourself giving into pressure. Is that right? You find you're not living your own life. You find yourself being dehumanized and degraded. You find yourself under the influence of other people. Then you discover that human beings aren't meant to live from reactions. Then that's the first truth, and you see everybody is. You see something wrong with you, you see something wrong with the world, and not only that, you see you've been asleep in these reactions. That you haven't been completely aware. And that you see everybody else is asleep. You may even see that they're walking zombies that call themselves human, that have the nerve to call themselves human. See? And then you see all the people who make you react, those people who are in charge of your behavior and your manipulations and the way you think, and those people that form you. You can see that they are also, there's only two types of people in the world, those who react and those who cause reaction, the bullies and the cowards and the bullied. But the bullies have simply learned how to control by throwing other people out of control. See, they've become so much like the people they have reacted to, that they have learned, they have grown up inside them so much, they somehow found a way to pull rank. And the world is a dog-eat-dog, full of intrigue and unhappiness, full of people dehumanizing each other. Even when you are reacting with pleasure and love, you are being manipulated. That this isn't love at all, but more of an escape from what you've become through being angry and upset and emotional. Through the pain, you turn to pleasure. But there's the same people there pulling the strings, just helping you to escape through all these excitements so that you never become a real human being to function from this other side of the wall of thought. Any questions? It's all right, I'm just... Yes, there's a... Okay, there's a gentleman right back there. I know I must have taken you by surprise, right? Yes.
This inner light that you talk about, how is that different from something like the higher self, say, that the Huna philosophy talks about? Is that similar to that?
The Kahunas and the Zen Buddhists and people who...
Yeah.
Yes, you see, the trouble with the Kahunas, what I know of them, and the trouble with Zen Buddhists and people who are in the Himalayas or Himalayan mountains, who to me, they practice a very structured form of enlightenment. And to me, I was watching the Kumu wrestlers in Japan. Is that the right name? Sumo. I'm not perfect. And I just see, and then the film went on to other aspects of Japan with the Zen masters, and I think to myself, my God, I mean, what they're saying is wonderful, but it's too structured, like Christianity. What they're saying is, you know, the Christians say great things, but I can learn in a flash of light, in a lightning flash across my mind, what it takes them to learn, months to learn, and never really understand it, and never really be it. You see, what I'm trying to say is that you don't need to learn, go to school to learn. I mean, right now, making books, there's no end to that stuff. And much learning is a burnout, weariness of the flesh. There's some other kind of learning, and this kind of learning that I'm speaking of is an unlearning of the worldly reactions. It's He who creates you, then there's Him who recreates you, and in religious parlance, that's called sin. When you fall to temptation, and you start to respond to some pretty broad, something like that. Or somebody puts money on the table and sort of dares you to take it, right? And you look both ways and your heart starts to beat. You're starting to react to that. I tell you, if you can steal a penny, it's easier to steal a dime, right? It has more power over you once you react to something, and you're less power over your own facilities from within. That's why it's important to understand there are rules for behavior. You see, when you hear the experts talk about, what they call it, risky behavior, high-risk behavior, as if, like, you can do it, no big deal, just be careful. Ooh, I feel like reacting and smacking them right through the nose, right? Because I know what wicked people they are. Say, go ahead, it's okay to be the way you are. And there's no cure for whatever's gone wrong with you until you learn that you are functioning from like an animal when you should be a human being. See? And this is the reason why you have conflicts. This is the reason why you have conflict. And the trouble with it is that you use reaction to drown what became of you through the last reaction. Like drinking to forget the guilt of drinking. You get excited to forget the guilt of being excited. See? Now you're making a point. Are you the same man that
Yes.
they sort of maneuvered you forward somehow?
I understand what you're saying. What I was trying to ask was about this inner light that you mentioned.
Right.
And I was just trying to get you to compare that to this idea of a higher self that you find in a lot of...
That is the higher self that they all talk about.
Okay, that's
and
what
very few people ever experience.
That's what I was
because
asking.
evil, may I use the word evil education? The bats have got into the belfry. They got these rigid plastic teachers, whether it's Christian or Zen. They got all the right words, but they ain't got the music. See, pardon the vernacular. They haven't got the flow. They haven't got the magic. Jesus was able to touch people with his presence and enlighten people with a few words and give them the secrets. And he would say to the Pharisees, of the educated men who were supposed to have known of these things, he says, you know the secrets, but you won't go into yourself. And you shut up the door. You prevent everybody else from entering. Evil education keeps us animals. There's something in the world that keeps you blind, keeps you dumb, a dumb animal. Feeds you all kinds of excuses to go on being the way you are. It permits you. Most politics, forgive me, Bill, he tells me not to talk about politics, but the thing is, I'm not going to speak about politics, don't worry. But politics, the political parties, religions, they have figureheads, and those figureheads have the rationale that frees you to do what you shouldn't be doing, that helps to justify your lifestyle. Every cannibal has a cannibal king, if you understand the point. So we have those experts who help to free us from conscience and say it's okay to be the way we are. See? They permit us, because the conscience is so powerful that unless we were released from it, we would be inhibited. So we have experts that release us from inhibition to do the dumb things, and then we're more guilty than we were before, and then they say, well, there, we'll take a pain away, here's a drug, here's a pill, we'll cut your stomach out, or whatever it is, you see. We'll fix you. And they keep fixing us, assuring us that we're okay the way we are, and we're not okay the way we are we? Are you not searching? See, some of us can be convinced we're okay the way we are, but some of us, we don't buy it. Because the reason is because you have a destiny with that light. And those who have the destiny with the light cannot be satisfied with the way that does not lead to it. We cannot accept, as the advertising says, we don't accept substitutes. It's not compatible with our soul. You could be in a religion and you might start to get gung-ho, but all of a sudden you can't quite get into it like everybody else. And you can't understand why everybody's floating around in space. See? And therefore you grow dissatisfied and you go look for something else. How many people have been searching all of their lives looking for something? One thing after another. And when you heard me on radio, what happened to you? Click. All of a sudden, you know that I know. And my consciousness, the way I express myself, is not perfectly articulate, but I struggle with words sometimes. I'd worry if I was smooth. I was just about say something, and then all of a sudden something else will come in its place, see? Worry about the smooth guys. They got it all rehearsed. It's always neatly arranged in their gut somewhere. Polished, smooth, and you admire their smoothness. I don't. I like to stammer and hem and haw, and it'll come, it comes. And I can just about to say something to you, all of a sudden something new will flash in. And I want you to learn to live like that. I want you to learn to trust that. But there are forces. In other words, I want you, see, it did it again to me. Those forces, there's, now it made me forget it. In other words, you must find the right motivation. In other words, there are two forms of motivation. There is that which is to the animal, and that which is to the human being. And if you take your energy from how animals do it, you'll become an animal. But you'll become worse than an animal. You'll become a devil in an animal's body. Because there's an inner man that's being formed by the process of motivation. We call it, in religious parlance, temptation. What lures you out of the framework of morality and knowing better. Follow me? You haven't fallen down yet. You still have some more to say? Please. Are you finished? Okay. You're dismissed. I'm just kidding. Anybody else have a question? Yes, this lady right here. She's right here.
You talk about, not reacting as you're learning. Since I've been doing the meditations, I haven't been reacting as much, but I'm beginning to wonder now, what's the difference actually between not reacting and becoming kind of wimpishly passive.
Oh, do I look wimpishly passive?
No, no. But
Well,
I want to
then-
know how. How did you get that way?
I don't react, I cause reactions. I don't get ulcers, I give them. No, but that's the line that the powerful use in this world. Let me put it this way. Bring me back on course if I get away from the subject. But I cause reactions in people. This is how I fight my battles, in a Christ-like way. I wish I was him all the way through. One day, please God, I will be, you know. I'm on my way. But this much I've learned, that I used to have to cause, you know, people start to react to me and push me around, and I push them back, and they push me and I push them back. And if I was stronger, and I usually was, I'd wipe the floor with them, or they wipe the floor with me. And we walk away feeling pretty proud of ourselves, you know. But that's an animal. Now, what do you do when somebody pushes you around and, you know, and mentally, verbally whips you, right? Tongue lashes you and degrades you. I used to practice martial arts, and I was good at it. So, but as I've grown older, see, there's a better way. It's even better than martial arts, and this is it. And now here I'm saying now, I'm coming to this fulcrum, this very fine point, is I have learned, the light teaches me and shows me that to react to pressure, a challenge, is to turn me into an animal, so that once I fall to being challenged, ego-wise, see, that I don't have anything in me that keeps me from it. If I didn't have that, the only thing I could be is the beast that, in other words, I have the choice to be a wimp or a beast. If I'm weak, I will submit. If only way I can do is evolve strength. I can go to learn karate, I can learn and come back and whip my adversary, and then he'd be a wimp. Or he'd make me into a wimp, but I can turn around and go home and make my kids into a wimp and my wife into wimps. See, that's a dog-eat-dog world. But that's the choice I have. I'm out of control and I'm subject, so therefore the only choice to make life bearable is turn around and make somebody else out of control and make them subject. And that way I can look down at them and not look back at what was done to me, my own inferiority, right? Okay, now I have learned, we've almost been a half an hour here, we're almost at the end of this first segment. Time passes very quickly. I've learned not to respond to that challenge, but not by my own power, because once you've responded to challenge, you're subject to challenge. You've got a being that grows out of challenge. That's what you have, a nature now that has to look for trouble, or create it, to make it subject to you, to feel strong when you're not. See? I have learned not to resent, as the word. Remember that word and freeze frame it. You new listeners especially, but you old viewers, you're going to see more about that one word. That one word, it'll blossom into a lotus flower, you know. I've learned not to resent, or in other words, to be perfectly patient, to find that strength from the light that teaches me, to find refuge in that light, to take my strength from that light, not to respond to the challenge, to realize that I'm not fighting that person, but I'm fighting what's got hold of that person. That if I respond, I'm only feeding what's wrong with him. If I lose, he feels more of a bully, but yet in conflict for being a bully, and then he'll hate me for somehow letting him win, because he feels bad about himself, even for winning. See? And somehow hate you he senses you're responsible somehow for him feeling like a monster. See? So I've learned not to respond, and therefore I can't fail. You can give me a bloody nose if you want to, but that doesn't make me weak. If I stand there and get a bloody nose, I won't stand there and get a bloody nose. I can still give somebody a bloody nose while not responding. Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple. It was said that he was angry, but it never says he was angry. It just said he threw them out. he was motivated. He said, get the hell out of here. And he had such strength that no one could stop him. That's because he didn't react like other people. See, there was a righteous anger, a righteous non-violent force. It can be violent, but it's not a violent force. Now, I have found that people, when they meet this force, are so terrified, so upset that they can't upset you, because they have to upset you to win. See? That they get upset because they can't upset you. And they don't know how to get over that. And people leave you alone, because they can't get their energy from you. See? They get their energy if you react, because they're external beings. They only get courage if you are a coward. But if you're not a coward, or if you're a bully, but if you're not a coward, you don't have to be a bully. You just don't have to be a coward. And you're giving off a different energy, and they can't use it to hurt you. Okay? Half an hour's gone by. Now I've got to make a pitch. This is, I hate to do this. I wish, could somebody else do this for me? Okay. Well, I have 3 cassettes to teach you how to meditate, and a book, how your mind can keep you well. The 3 cassettes in the book, I'll just hold the book up because we haven't got a cover on this yet. We're so unprofessional here at the foundation, but anyway. The book, $33.50. If you don't have the money, we'll send it to you.
For the book and the tapes.
And the book and the tapes, $33.50, and it will teach you how to be calm. It will show you where, it can't teach it to you, see? It will show you how to unlearn your reactions. It show you where the magic is. And I would invite my viewers to write wherever you are. If you're on satellite, we'll be here every night. But if you're watching on cable television in Los Angeles, this will be the last week. We may be doing a program 6 o'clock in the morning, but only if I get 500 responses with a pledge of $10 apiece. Otherwise, I won't even do that. We're going off the air because we don't have the money for cable television anymore. Didn't get enough response, but if you will please write to the foundation. The address is on the screen. Thank you very much, and join you tomorrow night. Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and we're continuing from the last segment. And in that last segment, I was talking about how we deal with bullies, how we deal with challenge, without becoming the thing we hate. Because that's the system of the dog-eat-dog system I was talking about, that you must learn not to respond to challenge. But the trouble is that, as the lady mentioned in that last segment, that there is a danger if you don't respond, that you're going to become a victim. You're going to become passively submissive to the things that pressure you. And indeed, that's one of the ways people deal with it. They sort of surrender, and they give in to avoid argument, and they don't want to make people feel bad. They won't speak up to them because they don't want to make them feel bad. Because really, they're afraid of their own reactions. So what they do is they learn how to be submissive and subject, cowardly, loving. They try to dilute the stress before it comes by being extra kind to people, so give them no reason to scream at them. It's like prevention. But what kind of human being is it that learns this style of existing? I mean, that's not worth living at all, to live tippy-toeing around people who are stronger and, bullies. It's not a life. You don't have a life of your own, and how could you possibly be a matador if you didn't have a bull? If you water down your stress, so there is no stress in your life, you understand that once you are made of stress, once you have responded to bullies, and you actually have a little bit of bully inside you, because you'll know that you may hate your husband and you're scared when he comes in the door, but when he goes out of the door, your kid's scared of you. So you do have the stress, but the trouble is you can water that stress down and find your relationship For example, let's give you an example. Let's say you're trying to water your stress down, and you're nice to people, and you're extra nice to your husband because he's a bully, and you make the dinner and you do everything just right. But he needs to upset you, so he's never going to be happy with what you do. How can he be a bully if you didn't? He has to have something he can bully, otherwise he doesn't see himself in that light. The bully has to have a coward. He has to make you more of a coward in order to be more of a bully person, because his sense of who he is out of how you react fearfully to him. And if you carry this concept to conclusions, you see why strong men and tyrants, once they become addicted to making you scared and making you grub in the dirt, see, they are never satisfied. They want to bully you into reacting. You're going to be reacting just the same. And even though you try to sterilize your environment by trying to avoid arguments and give in, it makes them very unhappy for you to do so. See? They know you're up to something, and it upsets them for you to be nice to them. Who knows what I'm talking about? Oh boy, a lot of cowards here this evening. It's all right. And bullies too? Yeah. So you see, and even so, that once you've given in to the bully, and he tastes that satisfaction, he tastes your death, he tastes your downfall. He lives by degrading you. It's that the more you give in to him, the more he does you wrong. So even though you're trying to avoid being upset, you're going to be upset because you have a need to be upset too, don't you? He has a need to upset, but you have a need to be upset, because unconsciously that giving in to him is going to feed that need to be upset, because the only way you know how to be is through being upset. See? Who understands that principle? Because your identity has come from wickedness. Now, the bully it's like a vampire and a zombie. I've used this example before, but it fits right here. You know, the vampire is the undead. He's alive on the dyingness of others. He bites. The mythical vampire bites, and the person starts to wither, but yet feel the need to bear the neck. Terrified, yes, but feeling the need to bear the neck. Why? Is because once the vampire bites, once you've fallen under the spell of the evil, once you've reacted to stress, the cruelty of stress, with its inherent design to take you from the light and feed on you, to make you a victim, you have not only become a victim, but you have an identity. You have the nature of the person who has hurt you, violated you, traumatized you. Therefore, in order to exist, you have to bear your neck. You have to be upset. You have to be violated. No matter what it is, who understands that principle of finding themselves needing to be violated? It's sexual or emotional. It could be anything. But suddenly, the person you hate becomes who you are. And you find yourself submitting to his cruelty, for him to put his cruelty into you. Because unless he puts his cruelty into you, you wouldn't have an identity. And you need to be caught up in the process of getting your identity by serving a cruel person, to get away from the fact that you're becoming like what you hate. Even though you may not want to become that way, you don't know how to stop bearing your neck for who you are. Who understands me? Is that clear? Now, why don't psychologists and psychiatrists understand that simple principle that all psychology revolves around failing, reacting to something evil and becoming what you hate? Even though you may not become what you hate, you may be submissive and cowardly and scraping the ground before your mentor. But when you turn around and get married, when you grow up to be a big boy, a big girl, you become a mother like what you hate. See? Because it's safe with your children to hurt them. It's safe. Now you are the one that causes the reaction. And now the bully in you is fed by the cowardice of another. And their bulliness, their nature in submission is forming. See? See? Now, this is the magic, ever since the world began, evil has this one-upsmanship. We're all subject to this dog-eat-dog world. The big cities of America is like a pall of dark smoke hanging over them when you go to the cities of East. Am I right? There's a whole world of people eating and being eaten and destroying and being destroyed and hating and being hated. Okay? Screwing and being screwed, and they think that's being loved. See? They don't know the difference. Pardon the expression. Yes?
What about a wife who bullies her husband by not having sex or refusing to go to bed with him?
She bullies you by withholding sex? How is that bullying?
It's using.
Are you the victim?
I am the victim.
Okay. Well, what about this?
Of the manipulation.
Manipulation? Once you have become a sex addict, you mean, and she holds back her fix, it upsets you, does it? And what does it do? It upsets you, and what does it do for you when you get upset? You start to being submissive, don't you?
Not always.
Well, unless you become rebellious, then you become violent. Then you'll take your sex violently once she's teased you for it, and then withholds it. And you resent that. It awakens you sexually. It makes your tongue hang out for it. See, because that's what reacting, remember I said in the beginning that reacting like an animal brings out the animal? Well, so therefore a woman can make a man angry with some petty means, maybe withholding sex. Just by knowing that it teases him. But she can have her way, and you'll either react and become a beast and take it, and in which case she enjoys being violated. There it is, she enjoys being a victim. Or you'll react, and you'll do whatever she wants you to do. It's because you'll submit to her bullying. Because your reaction for not giving you sex is resentment, and it makes you inferior. It makes you inferior, and it makes you do whatever she wants to get peace. See, not a peace, but peace. Preachers don't talk like that. That's the way it is. But all you have to do is not to be so needful. You see, the thing is, what the world does to you, it sort of traps you into needing things. Sex is one of them. Traps you into drinking as a means of solving your problem, or taking drugs as a means of solving a problem, which is only making you unconscious. That's the way most people solve their problems. If they don't know there's anything wrong, then they think they're all right. But when the person withholds that, first of all, they wave it in front of your nose, and then you start to get excited for it, and then they pull it away, and, have an air of, you can't have it, sort of thing. And then you start to react to that, and when you react to it, you want it more. Because your reaction has made you less human. And your less humanness has made you guilty. And your guilt makes you want it more, because you've learned what fixes it. See?
And when there's no reaction.
Now.
And you're in the light, and there's no reaction, and it reverses.
Well, then she want to give it to you all the time to get you hooked again.
Why not?
He says, what about if you're in the light and you don't react to it? You will find that it's the same with a job, same with anything. If you want something too much, they get a feeling of power. Yeah, so you got a wife and kids. They got this lovely feeling of power that they got you where they want you, and it's in human nature. Mm-hmm. They love it. But if you don't care about a job, whether they give it to you or not, but you show yourself capable, and you show that you don't respond to that bully, they kind of like that, and they'll give you the job, if only to make you addicted to that job. But you'll feel smart, you'll save your money, and see, you're not the kind of guy that goes out, has a job and spends it and becomes dependent on a job. So anytime the boss now, he thinks, I've got you, I'll sort of yank it from under him and see what he does. And I'll threaten him, I'll be rude to him, and you don't care because you still have the same principle. You know that he's giving you the job for the purpose to see if he can, pull the rug from under you at a certain point, and you don't react. And what happens is that he reacts to you're not reacting to it. See? And you can actually become the master and him the slave. But a kindly master. See what I mean? He can actually go absolutely stark raving mad. But people who, the point I was making, that if you learn the name of the game, it's not resenting, not being provoked, not being intimidated. There used to be a book not long ago, How to Win Through Intimidation, or Winning Through Intimidation. What a disgusting book. It teaches you exactly, the opposite of what I'm teaching. But if one of those intimidators met Roy Masters, there'd be a matador and the bull sort of thing, and he'd run. There wouldn't be any place he can hide, because when a person, have you ever tried to tell a joke and nobody laughed? You got the feeling? Multiply that by 1,000. If you ever try to make somebody react, and that person doesn't react, did you see Dan Rather? Did you see his embarrassment? Bush kind of didn't react like he thought he would. Except if I was there, Dan Rather would have had 3 red faces. Bush was kind of gentle. You have to watch me on CNN. I have a tape on CNN with those 2 jokers trying to get me to react. I said, I know what you kind of guys are doing. See, you're pushing these questions one after another, not giving me a chance to answer them. I said, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me to react. You're trying to upset me, to bring the worst out of me, but instead I'm making an ass of you. You're making an ass of yourself and bringing the worst out of you. And you should have seen the look on their face. We got it on tape. You have to see it. Listen, it works, but you've got to find the kind of reaction that isn't passive, meaning I give in to you. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm not talking about that. You have to have the boldness to be able to look someone straight in the eye without resenting the wicked little game he's playing, because there's a method in the madness. The madness is so that people do things to you and you can't understand. You scratch your head and say, why did he do? What did he do? What is there to be gained from this? They'll betray you, they'll lie about you, they'll anything to get you to resent them. Don't. You won. Who understands that? Now I want to tell you that if you could go through life, no matter what befalls you, and you can deal with it with this one thing, it means 1, you're aware. 2, you'll preserve your awareness. And you'll grow from being aware. You'll grow from it because there are 2 levels. There's a level of consciousness which, if it can be maintained, you can grow from it from within. But if that is destroyed, and by your reaction, then you start to grow from the other side. Follow that? And so therefore, your growth, your spiritual growth, depends, it can't be a matzo ball in the soup. You can't be not upset one day and upset the next day. You must be in an aware state. The meditation I'll teach you with this book and the cassettes. But the meditation will teach you how to get into the state where you observe things in a space that's a little bit before things happen. Not where you're preoccupied in your mind before someone sticks you with a knife and you've reacted before you've realized with the resentment. But put it in a space. You're in a space and you can see it coming before even they think of it. And you've got this little force shield around you like Star Trek, okay? Now, we have a lady here. Could you get that microphone? Okay? Yeah, that's fine. You can use the microphone. That's fine. We have a fire here. And we're not reacting to it. The place is filled with smoke, and they're quietly filing out and moving in the back while we're fixing it. I just caught that out of the corner of my eye, but if it was really bad, I'll be the first one out of here. Okay.
I want to ask a question about, you mentioned the book, Winning Through Intimidation.
Yes.
You know, I read that book, and it was the man who wrote it, he had been intimidated. He was in real estate. He had been, they used to keep him waiting all day.
Yes.
And he turned it around. But my question to you is, when I read the book, something about me wanted to imitate. It affected me. It really affected me.
That's the bully in you. See, that's the bully in you, that's the coward in you trying to be a bully. It wants to learn. It wants to imitate. It wants to learn because it wants to understand the secrets. It wants instruction. It wants to be taught. It's very, very compatible with that kind of teaching.
So that was the reason why I picked the book up to read in the beginning.
Right. Now, you see, I remember that book being advertised, and I said, what a horrible title. I know what this man is up to. I'm not interested. See? But why would you be interested? Because you've been intimidated and you know it works. Now you want to find out, how do I intimidate? What's the secrets? What games do I play? See? Thank you very much, Dolores. Okay, anybody else have a question? Yes, they're right there.
I read the book myself, but I wasn't reading to learn how not to be intimidated.
Well, that's not the book.
Oh.
You don't learn from that, although you could learn the negative. You could learn what I use on my radio program and even my TV program this evening. I've spoken about what people do. And actually there are two classes of people listening to me. There are many people listening to me to learn the tricks that the enemy plays. And say, now I understand what they're up to. And I make it very clear. And I approach the positive by the negative. What not to do. See, but there are a lot of people listen to my program to learn what to do. Does that see that I am talking about the negative? So then instead of using it and understanding now I see what people are up to, all I have to learn is to not react to it. I understand that. When I see that, I'm going to learn to do what Mr. Master says. But there are other people who are saying, hey, I haven't quite seen that angle. I know I'm going to go upset my wife when I get back, see. So they learn to do it better. So people in dictatorial power like Hitler, Mussolini, Khrushchev, and all the people who thrive on human suffering, they have learned to terrorize. They have learned to capitalize on people's existing reactions until they're so cowardly and so fearful, they'll give in to. There's no resistance left. See?
Roy, when you first started on the radio years ago, I heard you, and I started listening to you, and I got the tapes, and I was intimidated by my jobs.
All right.
But after I learned to meditate and get into my center and stay in my center, I don't even have jobs anymore. I went into business for myself. And I don't allow anyone to intimidate me, ever.
I like that very much. See, that's
Nobody
beautiful.
ever.
But because what happens, you stop being a worker.
Yeah.
And I bet you treat your employees graciously.
I'm nice to people, but my family is still trying to put me back in that little category.
Yeah, they're jealous
When they do it,
of your innocence.
I used to react, but now, last time it happened to me, I said, gee, I wish you could learn to be as courteous with me as I am with you.
I think that's sweet. And you can learn to be. How many people are intimidated by their job? Yes, see? How many people here? Come on now. How many people? You mean to say only about 1/3 of the audience? Most of you have learned not to be intimidated by your job. How many about? My son was talking to me on the radio the other day about being intimidated by time. I mean, you can be intimidated by the strangest things, because when he hated school, he said, he would watch the clock on the wall, and he remembered being traumatized, waiting day after day, week after week, waiting for 3 o'clock to get out of school. And he would hate time. And he said what it did to him, he said it made him hate his time in this world. It made him hate the time he spent in this world. That's why he went surfing. Because there was a sense of timelessness and freedom from restriction, from the world itself. So, there are many strange things we can hate. But we must learn, if we're going to be free, not to resent, be intimidated by anything. And then you're going to see your relationships with people and places and things and time will change. And the scripture calls that patience. There was a young man on the program the other day, I think it was just this morning. He said, well, he had a problem. He was creating hope for himself. And when, of course, when the things he hoped for didn't fall through, he was intimidated by that. See, you can actually create artificial hope. You can set a goal and move after that goal like the proverbial stick and carrot. And when you get there, be frustrated with getting it or frustrated with not getting it. But if you had something called patience, not just waiting. You know what? Does anybody know what I mean by patience? It's patience. The first patience is to have no goals, no dreams. Oh, this goes run counter to everything you're taught in school and church. Through patience possess ye your soul. And in our next segment, I'm going to talk about patience as a form of non-reaction, a form of acquiring things. See? And but the way to this patience, the way to this non-response lies in this book. I wrote this book almost 30 years ago. And I read it the other morning. I thumbed through it, and I couldn't believe it. I thought I hadn't put in there what was in there. It's all in there. I have 9 other books in case it isn't. Oh, tapes, yes. We also have some tapes, a tape cassette. And if you will cough up, pardon the expression, I'm not saying, will the Lord put it into your heart? If you got the sense and the brains to see where I'm coming from and you want to go there, it's the same thing, you understand that? Another way of saying the same thing. Then you write to us. It's a suggested donation of $33.50 plus the mailing, a couple of bucks, $2 or $3. And if you don't have the money, we'll give it to you for what you can afford. How your mind can keep you well. And in a moment, we're going to have the address on the screen. And I want to mention to the Los Angeles listeners, Channel 18 listeners only, that this is the last week. But if we get 500 people with a pledge, you don't have to send the money in. I just want to hear a pledge. That's $5,000. I can afford 6 o'clock in the morning. And then you can tape the programs or get up a little early, put toothpicks in your eyes and watch. But I can't afford. I've lost $150,000. And, I'm not a pusher for money, but I guess I have to be, but I can't be, I'm having a hard time pushing this. So thanks very much, and join us in our next program tomorrow night.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and in our last program, we ended on the subject of patience. What is it? I'd like to explore the idea of patience. Remember in my opening program, the first segment, I said there are phrases and words which, once you understand them and live them, and one of those words is patience or impatience. That's the negative side of it. The word will get to be more meaningful to you. Next week, next month, patience will have much more meaning. It will start unfolding like a lotus flower, lotus blossom. Patience and impatience. Let's explore the negative side first. I mean, patience is divine. Patience is the power of the light within you not to be intimidated. It's an armor. Through patience possess ye your soul, says the scripture. Count it a blessing, brethren, that you experience or meet divers various temptations. For the trying of your faith worketh patience. Let patience have its perfect works, that you may be entire, lacking nothing. Now I have said that patience is a non-response, the evidence that you have found something greater than the person intimidating you. And the whole world is awed. The whole world, the whole material world, animals, even animals, sense something awesome about a person that can't be intimidated. Now there are some people who can't be intimidated because they have all the money in the world. You can't intimidate them. You know, judges intimidate, but the person who goes before the judge, he gets intimidated. He has the power to intimidate. There are some people who are sort of like sharks. They are the ultimate predators. So they are sort of always cool. They give ulcers, but they never get them. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. I don't mean that. I understand people being powerful. But what about Moses and Pharaoh? Moses had no power, at least when he was defrocked. And yet he stood up to Pharaoh in a way that none of the other Israelites could, right? Remember that? And Pharaoh couldn't really get the better of him, could it? As a result of that, he did many miracles. And I think the same thing would happen to you, that you'll be able to do many miracles too, if you could just find this thing called patience. But, you see, let's explore the other side, the flip side of it, which is impatient. This is something you understand better. See, let's explore the world of impatience. See, I see patience, that person who, being patient, is having love in him, having courage. The trying of your faith worketh patience. If you know the truth, you know you're going to be patient. If you experience this inner light, that which created the world, which is greater than the world, and you're in union with it, you're going to be unmoved by cruelty. You're going to love instead of hate. And if you hate, or if you're impatient, see, it cuts you off from love. And that's what the wicked want to do when they intimidate you. They want to upset you. And they're impatient with you for you to react. Now there's two sides to the two kinds of impatience. There's that which is dominant, impatient, mother's impatient, and then there's the reaction to impatience, resentment. Now, resentment is the inferior part of the whole, inferior half. A person is impatient, but that person has no love. The person with patience has love. A person without patience has no love. He's impatient. He's impatient with you to grow. No one who loves you is going to be impatient with you, because impatience is a temptation for you to resent them. And if you resent someone, then you're separated from the power to grow. And after a while, remember I said about taking the identity of the person who's impatient, the intimidator? after all, the only way you know how to grow is through impatient people. You get up, as the lady said a few moments ago here, off camera, a few minutes ago, she says, there's something about reacting with resentment. I was calling it taking our identity, but she called it taking direction. In other words, you plugging in, since who you are and what you shall be, and what you shall do with what you shall be, what the programming of this being is all this recreation through original trauma in your life. The only way you can get the sense of direction is to have some bully give you direction. Yes, master. See? You have no sense of beingness and no sense of identity. And that's why weak men are attracted to strong women, because they got that impatient mother. And that's the brainchild of this impatient mother. This man needs to be impatient, this woman needs to have a woman that's stronger than him, to which he reacts and collects that direction. And see, gives her direction. And what is this direction? Ambition. Make me money, get ahead. And of course, this is pride. This is the typical Adam and Eve relationship. She's his backbone in his direction, and that's that he only grows pridefully, but meekly and weakly in her presence, you see. He's taking direction, and he sees who he is from her impatience. And she grows to be more and more impatient because her strength comes from his weakness for her. Now, young lady.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is a little bit from the last segment, but I think it might work anyway. You were talking before about when you're bitten by a vampire, okay, and you have that, and you reacted in the wrong way, and you have that spirit inside of you.
An impatient mother.
Yeah, or a wicked father, whatever.
Or a wicked father, right.
And you have that in you, okay? And it's like you grow up, and it's like it's in there, and you know it, and you know it's not a part of you.
It is a part of you.
Okay.
You must acknowledge it is a part of you, but it shouldn't be.
Okay, that's what I mean.
It is imprinted in you.
Okay, you know that it's imprinted in you, and you know that it's like a foreign object. It's like something in your eye.
It's something stuck in your craw.
Exactly. It's like I'm at the point now where I can see a definition. It's like it's there, and it's inside of me, but I don't want it to be there anymore. But sometimes I feel compelled. You know what I mean?
Compelled. You didn't finish the idea. You stopped at the word compelled.
Okay. I feel compelled to do what it wants, or compelled to...
Okay, now who is it? The imprint of your wicked father, or the imprint of your impatient mother?
The imprint of my wicked father.
Okay, and what did he do to you? Molested you?
Yes.
And has it created a sexual interest?
Yes. And also it's
unhealthy.
And also a lot of anger and hostility. And
well, I think we've discussed this before.
I know. And it's like...
you know what you have to do, don't you? What?
I have to give up hating him. And
you must forgive him.
Yeah.
You still hate him to this very day.
I realize, I thought that I had given it up, but it's like
He's put this embarrassing thing in you.
Mm-hmm.
He's put this compulsion, right?
Yeah.
For men. You've got a thing for men which embarrasses you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know isn't good to allow it to happen. See, and you're attracted to a man just like men like your dad,
mm-hmm.
aren't you?
Charming, yeah.
You see, and it's awful because you're not really, you're a different kind of woman than the average woman, aren't you? You're seeing this where the average woman doesn't.
Yeah.
you think your feelings are you. They think their feelings are them, and you know they're not.
I know they're not.
They're not from you. They're from some experience. But if you keep resenting your father, if you resent the feelings you have, which are from your father, mm-hmm. one and the same, if you resent those feelings which embarrass you, you will add energy to the feelings, and they will grow. And the feelings will grow, and then you'll hate your father. You start to resent your father for putting him there. And even though your father isn't around, you'll still be hating him mm-hmm. in your head. Is that right?
It's really funny because it's not because he isn't around. It's like I don't have him to deal with, but there are people that I work with that are like him, and it's like I have
you don't have far to go. You don't have far to go, do you, to get those reactions?
No, I don't actually. It doesn't matter. It's not. It's like the same spirit that's in him is in a lot of people. Correct.
Correct.
So even if I was blind, it doesn't have to be my father.
Correct.
So the thing is, it's like now, it's like I'm aware of it. I mean, I thought that I had stopped hating my father because it wasn't this violent energy like I hate my father, I hate my father.
But it's still being, the experience of it is being renewed by the contact with people like your father in everyday life.
Yeah, and what brought it back was the other day, or actually it's been a couple of weeks, I saw the movie Nuts. I don't know if you know.
Yes, very good.
It's a very good movie, and it just brought everything right back. I mean, right in front of my face again.
And now, when you were watching that movie, did you start to resent the man?
Yes.
Now, you missed a very good opportunity.
I know.
Because you should have stood back and watched yourself resenting the man.
It was so automatic. It was like,
But you see, that's where the meditation comes in, where you see you're not meditating, or you're not meditating properly.
I must not be doing it properly.
No, because if you're meditating properly, it puts you in that space. Remember the other program I mentioned that if you're meditating and you're patient and you have love, you can withstand intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, you can't be preoccupied in your head. Otherwise, it catches up, it sneaks up on you, like watching a movie. See, when I go to a movie, you know what I do? I sit back and watch myself watching the movie, and I'm safe. Then I get the message from it in a very deep way. But then I watch everybody else, and they're lost in that movie,
Mm-hmm.
with all those little experiences. Some were experiencing things like yourself. So you missed an opportunity. Go and see it again.
I will. I don't understand where it's like.
It's the resentment, resentment revisited. The resentment at the person the people all around you, like your dad.
Mm-hmm.
They exhibit the same kind of meannesses, don't they? Which is,
Thank you.
Which you identify, don't you, and respond to very strongly with that called resentment. And it keeps that alive in you. It keeps that old trauma alive in you.
The only thing is, I don't understand. It's like, I don't. When I was watching that movie, I felt like I remember feeling rage and stuff like that, but I don't.
At the man.
Yeah, but I don't know how not to do that. You know what I mean?
I know that. How old are you? You're just 19, aren't you?
No, I'm a lot older than that now.
You are? The
I'm
last time I
22.
looked, you were 19.
Well, I grew up.
This patience is getting to me. Time, space is disappearing.
It's like that is the only thing that's holding me, because everything is coming back to that. It's like, that's like, I know what you're saying, if I can just let go of that, that is my thing.
You can't go beyond that until you get beyond that.
Right. Because the way my life is turning now, that is like the last whatever of the past that I just have to let go of. But
you can't go beyond it.
Right.
Until you get beyond it.
I understand. And so it's like, this is where I am, and
this is your thing. This is
my thing. People
Right.
have their little things.
Everybody has their own little trauma and their own hate attachments to those traumas. But you can also see that you're addicted to it. There's a part of you that milks those situations for those resentment values.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that's alive in you has an intelligence of its own.
Sure does, because
See? It has an identity of its own. And in other words, if you identify with it,
mm-hmm.
it will make you look for things to be upset about. Even read inferences that are not there in order to get the reaction. See what the reaction is, what the resentment is. The thing in you, if you were molested as a young kid and you didn't resent your parents, maybe you're too young to understand what it was. My daughter has a petting zoo, at Diane. And I've watched little children go into the petting zoo areas with these animals. And some children are terrified, and some children are not. Now we take the tiger out, which is 300 pounds, and some children are even more terrified, and some children will walk up to that tiger and say, "A nice little pussycat." Now that's a dangerous, and that tiger's licking his chops, I can tell you. But the point is, the child that's been violated is terrified. There's something in him that exists through terror. Because it is no longer the child anymore, but the child, it's something, a replacement of the child which is of the experience. Therefore, it must always re-experience the experience and find new ways to experience terror or resentment. It'll invent the ways. I was talking to Bill the other day. Isn't that right, Bill? In other words, you were looking at me and finding resentments. You're inventing them even though they weren't there because there's something in you that needed it.
Absolutely.
See?
Well, what I'm finding is that it's like now that I'm aware, because I thought that I didn't hate my father for some time, it was like covered up again.
Yes.
But now that I'm aware that it's still there and I don't want to hate him, I mean, I would just like to...
Then don't.
Okay. It's
Now,
like,
how do you not hate him? All right. By practicing not hating people like him.
the people
See?
that I work with, because it's like the
Yes.
people, this is one guy that I work with who gets on my nerves because he's a total pervert. And
But you know something? He was the one that could become most attractive.
oh,
Be careful.
he's not even, I don't know.
Did you know that how men make themselves attractive? By being aggravating to women? Because they know that women have a hook for hate, have a thing for hating men. And would ladies understand that? And suddenly they find themselves sexually attracted to it. And it may be the kind of man in there that was their father violated them as a child, see? Be careful of it, very careful. Because, you see, it has grown out. Whatever is in you is a living alien. It's an alien thing. Mm-hmm. And in order to live, it must reconnect. It must have it must reconnect in its original form. In other words, if you were sexually violated, then you become sexually active, right? But now it's a thing that's out of control. And you're sexually active only because you resented it. Had you not been resentful, you would have been like the little child with the tiger. You wouldn't even remember that you even said, "Nice little pussycat," when you were a kid. There'd be no terror in you, no memory of it. Like Roy Masters has no memory of his past at all, very little. And it's almost embarrassing, because for some reason, I've been going through life like that little kid, nice little pussycat. Well, everybody's going through life with amplified terror and hate. So therefore, you tend to be made of all those hate experiences. And the more you're made of all those hate experiences, the more appetite you have for hate experiences, even inventing them in order to feed it. See? Now, are you following?
I'm following.
Good. It may not be easy, but I tell you that the moment you meditate and get into your space, and when you get to the point where you're tired, sick and tired of being tired, and see that there's something in you that enjoys resenting the people, it's a pride that enjoys judging, that sort of locks in and sucks something from that experience, which is more of what you don't like to see in yourself. You see what I mean? Once you see that, you're going to experience something called dying, because there is that point in life where you start to see in the light that you have to be patient, you have to give up resentment, so as no longer to take your identity from the impatient, here we're coming back to it again, and the cruel, and the perverted. All the perverted and the cruel and the wicked are impatient with us, and they terrorize us, and they upset us, and with their perversions. And they put into us a reaction called resentment. And that resentment is the brainchild of impatience. It's the brainchild of evil. Even as patience, if you were patient with your children, then they would respond and become the brainchild of love. Who understands that? And I can't say much about love. I can tell you about what love is not. But you see the flip side if I talk about what it isn't. See? Now I'm saying to you that if you could meditate with a true and sincere desire, your whole life most of your inner life, I should say, that the spiritual person is constructed out of this ectoplasm, electricity of plugging into something cruel and wicked, because it's who we are and who we are more. If we're going to be more of anything, we have to be more of the thing we hate. And we have to hate it to be more. Do you see that? And you don't like what you see, you may even hate yourself for it, but that's still more. It's still becoming more when you hate yourself. You're still hating the self and giving strength to that thing, even though it's not outside you, it's inside you. If you hate yourself, you hate the father in you. You hate your mother in you. You're actually energizing it, giving up some of your spiritual strength to give it life. And the more you hate yourself, the bigger it gets. The bigger it gets, the more you hate it. You struggle with it. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon it's you. So, coming back to you now, to walk away and leave you standing there. Do you see that you must connect, and you must find this patience, you must realize that resentment is what it's all about in you. And if you are to grow, that is the one thing with all the strength and anything you have, focus in on that. Get out of your thoughts, get out of that self, detach from the self that teaches you, that wants you to hate, so it has no more control of you. Come into the light where love is and forgiveness, and the evidence that you have succeeded is that when you go to the office in the morning, you're looking for the opportunity. You see, in the way, the opposite is you're looking for things you're just waiting for something to happen to get upset about. There it is.
Or it's like me, it's like it's more of a fear. It's like I've always been like afraid of people like my father.
You're right.
And so in this case, this guy causes me to have fear. And I mean, I look at things logically, and I know
your logic won't work.
I know it doesn't. But I mean, that's how I've been able to like deal or whatever, at least on the surface, with fear. So
but he'll get you to submit to him if you're not careful. Because after a while, if you react with anger and then fear and then submission, then you're going to grow. Then what is become you is out of him, and the only way that you could be you, which is to be with him, to be in submission to him, in contact with him. You can't live with him, and you won't be able to live without him. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he'll be the father and he'll molest you, and he'll violate you, because he's made of the same stuff, and he's found his mark in you. He's put his. You see, he knows that. He senses that. See?
How does it?
That dog.
Because when you're saying that, I remember being small. I remember just like shock, whatever. But I wasn't angry at first, and then
later you were. Yes.
Right.
See, you would have, but it was the anger that did it.
I know it was, but I didn't know how not. I mean, I didn't.
Do you know that if you're being crucified, your body's being violated? It's rape, isn't it? Isn't murder rape? Jesus was being executed, right? What did he say? He said, "Forgive." He said it out loud so everybody could hear what he was doing, because nobody otherwise would understand. He had to articulate it. Forgive them, Father, for they haven't the foggiest idea what they're doing. Right? He says, you see, I've overcome the world. Man, what a statement. I am saying, do you understand, how could a man who's being crucified on a cross, how could a woman that's being raped or violated overcome the world? Same thing. It's less harmful to be raped than it is to be killed. See? Have a spear stuck in your side and degraded. I tell you, as a child you couldn't help yourself from being resentful, but now you're a fully grown woman. You have the power to do it. Do it.
I will.
And overcome him. Because what you're doing is you're feeding him inside you. Don't you see that?
Yeah, I see that now, but I didn't.
In other words, you're playing right into his hands. And all you have to do is give up the hate. Give up the resentment. But how do you do it? From now onwards, every man that's like your father, watch the intimidation. Meditate.
Yeah.
Meditate before the experience. Go to work and look for the opportunity not to be upset. Got it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, now, I am teaching something very simple. We're going to have that gentleman for our next course. Okay? In our next segment. But I'm teaching something very simple. The way to this patience, the way to this non-response. And I can't say myself that I'm perfect in it, but I'm a little bit ahead of most people. And I've got my trials ahead of me yet. See, so no one can ever boast that they have arrived. See? But you get stronger to handle bigger things. You start with the pawns and you end up with the knights and the bishops and the kings and the queens. You move progressively up the ranks and you get to meet those you'd otherwise, you know, would be beyond you. And that's how you grow beyond the world, the powers that be. How your mind can keep you well, and please write to us. And there's a cassettes, got a juggle, there's a cassettes here to teach you 3 of them. And the suggested donation is $33.50. And you're on your way. It's a very simple technique of concentrating, actually learning to defocus your mind from its fixation to thought material. And then come from a different place. And nobody can deal with you. You triumph over every situation, and you grow in character and grace as well. Suggest you write. And those of you listening to me over television 18 in Los Angeles, if I can get, I'm going off the air, this is the last week, because I couldn't afford $900 a half hour. That's what they put the price up to, and I couldn't even afford where it was. So I've lost $150,000, I can't really continue. But if you would like to send a pledge of 500 people, pledge of at least $10, I can go on 6 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, satellite people watch me on satellite every night. Thank you very much for listening, and join us again. Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and we've been talking about, well, I've been talking about patience and impatience. And for the new viewers, patience is the opposite to impatience, and we all think, well, impatient, everybody gets impatient. But no, patience is wickedness. Impatient parents are wicked. I mean, let's be honest. Do you remember your parents being patient, and what opens up on the other side? You look into an impatient parent's face, what do you see? Living hell. That's what's getting inside you through your reaction called resentment. So that takes you away from love, right? And it makes you a little bit like the person that you're impatient with, right? That was impatient with you. See, impatience is one half, and your reaction, resentment, is the other. There are 2 forms of hate. One is the projection of it, and one is the transmitter. Impatient people. And why are people impatient? Why? Because the wickedness in them has an evangelic zeal. It's creating its own kind. It's projecting. See, it's recreating. It's in its own image. And it also does something else. It devours. Impatient people kill their own children. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? They kill them psychologically. Can you imagine some father saying, "You stupid little bastard," or something, "brat, you little no good son of a..." You know, the kind of stuff that comes, I can't invent it. It flows very freely from these people because they have a direct connection to, you know, their teacher, their mentor. And it flows profusely. See, and imagine a little child in an environment. All over America tonight, little children are being murdered by their parents. Psychologically destroyed. Psychologically, it's too easy a word. Spiritually deadened. To feed the insatiable appetite of the bully, because that's what a bully is. He feeds on carrion. He lives off your reaction. You give up energy. You give up life. Why do you think people... Look, I used to like hunting a little bit until I actually shot something and I felt very uncomfortable. I wasn't hungry, see? But I felt like I was getting some funny feeling from this. I killed a chicken once, see? And I got a funny feeling from that chicken that I killed. I don't know if anybody felt... It was like life was clinging to me. Like yes, something was coming from that chicken. And I think hunters like to kill because they get life from death. There's some animals, you got to feed them live animals because they got to get the pleasure of killing. In order to, otherwise they won't eat. There's some other value coming from playing with the victim, see? and tormenting it till it dies. And I think the human predator is very much like that. They've got to kill you. And they kill you with their wickedness. And through this impatience, through this impatience, it opens up the side of hell, this side of hell. And you see this thing from the other side. The children see that, don't you, children? Right? Your kids seen it, and your parents. And you resent that. And as you resent it, see, you're being tempted, you've not been taught to deal with it. And I'm teaching you the opposite. And as you resent it, you die a little bit. The real you dies. You give off energy, and it makes the bully strong. Because impatience takes life, but patience gives it. When you love your children, you're giving them life. You're giving them love. Okay? Now I'll take my next call.
So in order to become patient, you have to learn to forgive.
Exactly. They're patience and forgiveness, they're really the same thing. Remember I said if you keep looking at the one word over and over again, it takes on different meanings if you practice it. So don't you see? Practice patience. What is patience? Patience is in the face of impatience. Impatience is cruelty. It wants you to hate. But if you're patient, you're not hating. You're forbearing to hate. You're forgiving. You're giving before. And what did I say about meditating? Being in a space so you can see just ahead? You're preparing to give before. See?
You know, I've become aware of the phenomena quite a number of years, and I've meditated, and I've looked at my own reaction to cruelty, someone pushing my buttons, become aware of the original cause of my self-sabotage.
Okay, that's a good way of saying it.
And actually went through the inner motion of disarming the memory of this original person that fouled me up, these 30 years ago. Looking at it.
Who was it?
Well, whoever it was. I mean, it's my father.
And other people who take their place.
That reinforced the original experience. Looked at it and see, and I've seen, that they are not directly to blame. That it went some generations before.
Well, they were victims too.
And they were the carriers in turn, and so in other words, to try to get some sort of distance and perspective, but nevertheless, when I get confronted with the experience of someone now in this moment, pushing these particular buttons,
you feel you're breathing heavy.
Yes.
And your knees begin to get weak or something.
Yes, and it's a subtle thing.
All right.
On the one hand, I'm reacting like I've always done.
But in another way, you're not.
Rage.
In another way, you're not.
Yes, and this is what I'm trying to get at.
You want to discuss it?
Yes, I would like to.
I'd be happy. You want me to discuss that part of you?
Yes.
You do? All right. Okay, if you'd like to remain standing, it's okay, but it's up to you. You can always stand up again if you have some discourse. Now, I think I discussed this on another segment, but it's worth discussing it again, because no matter how many times I mention it, you're going to appreciate it more, and a lot of people haven't heard it. Now, I've said there's the within, a life from within, and a human, the inner man or the inner woman. And that comes from love and patience. And I've said that the violated person comes from resentment and impatience. That the world seeps in inside you and puts a different person in there that otherwise would be. The pure and innocent one is displaced slowly but surely. Now, the one that grows up in you through being violated is from the world. And therefore, it's this spiritual part of us that longs for the spiritual thing that created us through wickedness. It may have been a father that was cruel to you, or a mother, but it was the other side of your mother that really is the inside of you. Do you understand? It's not really your mother. Your mother's flesh and blood, or your father's flesh and blood. The cruelty is spiritual. just like goodness is spiritual. There's a portal in her soul, and when they're impatient, you remember we were talking about just now, this portal opens and you see that they're living hell. They're breathing fire and brimstone, aren't they? So you see, when you've reacted resentfully to your parents, your soul is ripped open, and there is planted into you a little bit of that person. The other side of that person is the inside of you. You are the extension of their beyond. It's almost very spiritual, because I am looking for a beyond within me, but most of our beyond is outside us. And who we are is made up of those types of people in whom this kind of wickedness lives. And we see so now we have two factors. One, we have an inner man or inner woman that's a result of an outer experience. And the outer experience is a person. But what we're experiencing is not only the person, but we're experiencing something beyond that person, because that's where we're coming from. See? We're made of a little bit of hell, in other words. And that little bit of hell is always seeking a father like was cruel to us, or a mother that did us in. But it's not the mother, it's the spirit of the mother. They may look very much unlike your mother, but yet somehow that little demonoid inside us is always seeking out those qualities and pulling it out of people if you can. If it isn't there to begin with, you'll draw it out somehow. You'll pull it out of a man will pull it out of a woman. You see? Now, that's the spiritual part of it. But so therefore, the spiritual part, which is the violated person, is always attracted to the violator, spiritually. But physically, we're not only subject spiritually because we are out of that experience. We're the brainchild of that. The inner man is out of their inner person, you see. But physically, that when our soul is violated and we are pulled away from love, God's self in us, see? And this inner woman starts to grow up. We find an interesting phenomenon, and that is our physical body, which is around the inner man, right? The extension of it. If we had a true inner self, because of the light within us was never violated, therefore we would be subject all the way through our marrow, through our spirit and beyond. We would be subject to God and God alone. Therefore we'd be not subject to the environment. In other words, I say it this way, we'd be subject to the Creator, not the creation. But now we're subject to the Recreator. The soul is subject, it's made of it, it needs it. We have a strange psychological need for the people who violate us. But at the same time, our physical body, since it's cut off from the inner source of its real strength and growth, the physical body is subject to greater and authoritarian physical forms. In other words, to put it in a nutshell, the more we find the light and the more patient we are, not resentful, the more we are the extension of that inner light and not the extension or subject to the outer cruelty, authority with its impatience and cruelty. But on the way back, we notice that even we're now more conscious and we're not resenting people anymore, but we notice our body is still reacting. See? Are we getting it now? The body is still reacting to the physical world. The inner man is not. Example. You have an argument with me right this minute, and you get really upset, resentful. I've done you in. Your physically, not only the spiritual, psychological, but physically, you are inferior to my authority. I am your authority. My shell and my spirit is your authority. And you tremble in my presence because you're the effect of a cause. You see? And you, in other words, you notice your physical body is subject to the physical world. And the more resentful you become, the more fearful you become. Physically, you notice it, and you even resent your own fear. So you resent knowing that you're weak, and other people can prod you and make you make you aware of your own weakness, and you resent being made aware of your own weakness, and you become more physically sensitive. See? As well as spiritually made in the image of the intimidation, which is also subject, isn't it? See? So you have to live in fear, because fear is the only way you can live. It exists because you are the extension of fear, you're extension of wickedness and cruelty. See, so now on the way back, once you've learned the lesson, you will notice that you may have spiritual strength not to be intimidated, but your physical shell is still sensitive to the fear. For example, I didn't finish my point before. I went ahead too far. If I make you resentful now, and a week later you see me coming down the street, you're going to have a little twinge of feeling right here. And you can try to avoid me. You're going to duck in a doorway, hoping not to meet me. But you're going to have little words in your mind, trying to find some way something to say to me. Because you've lost your ability to speak and say the appropriate things. But if you do meet me, you might fall all over me and spill smiles. And then you might be resentful afterwards because I made you react that way. But the next time you see me, you're even more fearful. See, your physical body is becoming conditioned to something superior to yourself. And you cannot overcome it because the inner part that could overcome it with is also subject. Do you see that? The inner man is also subject. So, now the way back. The inner man must not be subject. But the outer man still is. Don't get carried. In other words, do you know something? Nobody will notice it but you. The strangest thing will happen to you. You'll feel your knees knocking when you talk up to your mother or father, or to talk up to someone who did you in when you were a kid. But suddenly you've got the strength to do it, and you do it while your knees are trembling, and your heart is beating, maybe a little more than it should, but guess what? They don't see it. Only you do. And no sooner you did that your fear goes away. You're pushing them back into their space. So, for instance, I can give you a little rule of thumb. Yes, the degree to which you know that you're in God's grace and growing is measured by the lessening of your fear towards the world. In other words, the highest measure of this, in my opinion, is to stand up in a court of law without trembling and with boldness and speak to that judge as if you were his judge. But people get so afraid of authority in the world represented by that judge, they have to have a lawyer speak for them. Besides, it's very complicated anyway. Who understands that stuff anyway? See? But like Gandhi, you remember Gandhi? Marvelous example of how a person should behave. See? And it was very well done. How eventually people became afraid of him because he was not afraid of them. He was a frail little fellow, but bold as you please. Okay? Yes. Did I answer the question?
I'd like to know what fear stems from. Is it always a resentment?
Always. There's no fear without hate. Who hath fear, Scripture, is not made perfect in love. Is that right? Therefore, is that correct? That's what the Scripture says. Who hath fear, reaction to the world around you, is not made perfect, not subject to love. If you resent somebody, then you would cease to be subject to love. So you see, if you hate, you're separated from love, and you cannot overcome good because you've lost the good you can overcome with, because you've already been overcome. And then you have the fear, because the resentment then starts to make you aware that you are subject physically as well as spiritually to the world around you. If you're not subject to the Creator, you're subject to the creature. And as try as you will, you can never reverse it except you become the creature itself. Then you can overcome your fear, but you have to make other people afraid.
So whatever fear you have, you can always trace it back to some
hate.
type of hate that you...
Exactly. If you had love and patience, you'd have faith and love. You see how now the words are multiplying, aren't they? Patience, love, faith. Who has patience how can I say that again? Count it a blessing, brethren, that you meet with temptations, for the trying of your faith worketh patience. Patience is the extension of knowing something, knowing the truth, repenting of your impatience, repenting of your resentment, a profound change that's come about through this faith of knowing your faults, impatience, resentment to impatient people. See? An acknowledgement of your own wrong, which would otherwise be maintained by impatience and resentment. See, what do people do when they don't want to admit they're wrong? They don't want to see the truth? They remain impatient, or they remain upset, resentful all the time, judging, to get above the knowing that they're being judged. See, so therefore when you're ready to face the truth, you see that your pride is sustained by impatience or resentment. You see? Pride is, but you can't know the truth. But if you're searching the truth, you'll know it, and that you'll know that what I'm saying is correct. Wow, that's the key. See? That's it. That's all I got to do is to forgive. Well, give it to me quickly. Teach me to forgive quickly is the attitude, right?
Roy, I have a question for you. It has to do with pride.
Yes.
Why are schools, high schools I would say, teaching pridefulness to our kids?
Because they're wicked.
And
because the high school teachers who teach that are teaching them, well, they're the snakes in the grass. The once removed serpents of old in the garden that held up the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil to make oneself a god of pridefulness. It is almost a mandate. Once you fall to the system, you can't be innocent. You have to be pride. There's no choice about being prideful anymore. They lay it on you the day you're born. They stuff it in your ear and stuff it up your nose, don't they? They make you think there's something wrong with you if you're not prideful and achievement-oriented.
If they belong to, let's say, the high school band.
But the point is, if you resent it, what happens to you? It enters, doesn't it? Yes, right. And then you become addicted. Don't you become violated by that? Then you become achievement-oriented, don't you? Just like a person would be violated sexually. See? Whatever violates you, whatever it is, even you're violated by time, you'll be unduly affected by time. Go ahead.
I was going to say that this goes up to the high school principal. And if a kid belongs to a band, to the school band, they give him a paper that they should be proud of playing with the band. They should be proud of learning this. And
what that high school principal needs, in my opinion, is a knuckle sandwich.
I couldn't believe she came home with a letter.
Why do you send your child to that school?
Well, I'm thinking of
You've got money,
that.
you make a good living. Start your own school. Or go.
I thought about that too.
Yeah, start your own, because government schools are full of archaic terrorists and bullies. I mean, highly paid terrorists and bullies, right? That's what they are. They terrorize your children into submission to learn, and they can never be the beautiful being that the good Lord meant them to be.
Intended, right.
See, so I say curse the government schools. And anybody who sends their child to a government school is simply a victim of government schools. And you know, if you're locked up with terrorists in an airplane, you have sympathy for the terrorists. So you send your kids to terrorists' schools. You can't help yourself. You're subject yourself. You think you're doing the right thing. You sacrifice your children to what you yourself were sacrificed to, because you're submissive to the world.
You know, what they have in mind is, for instance, kids. They say they need a higher education to make it. And I told my girl.
I saw a sign on a bumper the other day. Another great brain ruined by higher education.
I was telling her that she didn't need to go to school and be trained on something, and that she could learn outside. I could help her. And then she said, it makes sense what you're saying, but I don't like what you're saying.
That's right, because she's already been violated.
See, and
she's already been violated. she's been violated already. The mind is already getting formed. See? The children of light, they learn different from the children of darkness. And I learn in my own time, in my own space, in my own speed. And I like to hold, a butterfly in my hand and learn about butterflies. And I don't like to learn from the ghost of things. Like, I don't want to hear about butterflies. I want to see one and then touch one. And I want to feel one. I want to see the butterfly come out of the cocoon. I want to see that chrysalis, and I want to see it. I want to understand it. I want to feel it, experience it. They don't do that in school. They just fill you with memories. There's something terribly missing in the school. Recitations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 2 minutes before the end of the program. We've got I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, in Los Angeles, this is our last week. Now, next week, I will be on at 6 o'clock in the morning on Channel 18 if I get, before Friday, 500 people pledging $10 apiece, because it's a cheaper time. I can't afford this time. No I won't say nobody, but not enough. I've lost too much money. I can't anymore. So I don't have the skills of Mr. Baker. I really don't. I don't want him either. I'd rather lose my money and have my soul. So we'll go on at 6 o'clock. So you'll tune your dial to 6 o'clock in the morning on Channel 18 locally here in Los Angeles, and you'll know if I got the money. Otherwise, you get Mickey Mouse. Good luck to you. You'll need it. Now, those watching on satellite, those of you watching on satellite, watch us, advertised times, probably Monday through Friday, or Sunday through Friday, actually. So tune in and tell your friends, and nag your cable stations. Maybe they'll put us on. I don't know. Maybe they will. Meanwhile, we're talking about patience and self-control. It's in the book, How Your Mind Can Keep You Well. And it will teach you, it won't teach you, it will help you to unlearn your impatient reactions, how to get rid of the resentment. There's a way it's done. And also, 3 cassettes. They're upside down, but who cares? If you write to me, it's $33.50 a suggested donation. If you can't afford it, send the money, whatever you can, a nickel, and I will send it to you anyway, and you'll never hear from us again. Weird, I know, but we do things different. Thanks for listening, and join us on the next program.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and this is the last segment on this program for this week. We're talking about reaction to stress, the 2 types, the cause, impatience, cruelty, and resentment, which is the corresponding, the other half of that. The projection of wickedness into us. We become like what we respond to, the impatient people. Impatient people represent hell. Patience represents heaven. That's why your children have beautiful little souls when they're born. And if you are patient, endlessly patient, never being impatient at all with them, you showing love, and those little children correspond. The inside of them resonates with the inside of you. And they'll obey you, they'll trust you, they'll follow you, and there'll be nothing wrong with that. They're believing the believable. They're loving the lovable. But if you're impatient, then you put into them what is inside you. And the inside of them, which is no longer true, responds to the inside of you, which is no longer true. So that very often you find yourself with children who are unmanageable or wimpy, but rebelling because you put into them something that's trying to be free from you, but in the process of struggle becoming you. It's a will just like yours. See? Yes?
Would you suggest that a person get in contact with the violations that he or she has experienced in the past, or just kind of deal with them as they pop up?
Well, once you've got on solid ground you're talking about?
Yeah.
Once you've got on the solid ground within yourself and you found back where the light is, you found your original innocence again, and you start to develop it, you have to start undoing what was done to you. You have to start pushing people back into their space. Not through bullying tactics, but, you know, going to see your mother or going to see your brother who violated you. See? And say, hey, look, brother. Look, bro. Anyway, you say, talk to him that way. And say, I know what you did when, you know, you did this to me when you were a kid, and I know mother must have laid a trip on you too. I've hated you, and, you know, you really set me up for the rest of my life, and I don't think you realize what you did. And he might say, yes, you know, it's been bothering me for a long time, but I couldn't say anything to you. And you start to, well, you know, Jesus said something nice like that. He said, don't bring gifts to the temple. But if you have aught against your brother, your mother, your father, your brother, he said, leave the gifts at the door. Go make it right with your fellow man. Whoever it is. See, make it right with them if they're alive.
So the effort will kind of bring the situation out of the pocket.
It will. It's amazing how when you approach the scene of the crime, that you have the opportunity to relate to it different, and if you do, you become different. Now, the other person doesn't have to become different. They don't have to. They may be wicked all the way through. And so if you're dealing, but the point is you're giving them an opportunity to, you know, apologize, to say they're sorry, to look at themselves, to make it good with you, to have a new experience with you. But they don't have to take it. They don't have, your mother, I've said this before many times, but if you're dealing with a parent who is wicked all the way through, watch out, because you could end up in the nut house. Because she has all those buttons, and she'll start saying to you such things as, you great ungrateful hussy, I scrubbed and I worked my fingers to them, I brought you into the world. You see, and look how you depreciate me. They look at you as though you're putting them down. And they'll make you doubt yourself like they did when you were a little child. And you've got to be very careful at that moment not to resent them, to get that little flash of resentment, but to hold your ground and say, well, mother, I could see that we're not getting anywhere. See, all I wanted were you to, you know, I'm the victim, I felt the pain, and I have those memories, and you don't want to think of it. You don't want to realize what you've done to me. See, but my duty was to tell you, I thought perhaps we might be friends. I'm willing to let it go, but I'm still willing to let it go, but I can't be friends with you. See, in other words, there's two parts of that. You have no business doing business as usual with a person who is not sorry.
So you're talking about not waiting on a memory, but just doing it freely.
You'll know inside your heart when you're on the track, when the time is right to make your approach to these people.
Oh, okay.
They don't have to get better. In other words, it's not your responsibility to see that they change. It's only your responsibility to say what you should have always said, in the way it should have always been said and done, patiently. Okay? Yes, young lady.
Along that, on the other end of the spectrum, what about the emotional availability of one's parents? You know, say like parents who kind of herded you off to camp during the summer, put you in all special activities after school.
They just get rid of you. They didn't want to bother with you.
How do you handle that? Is that a type of violation?
But don't you feel rejected?
Yeah, sure.
And didn't you spend your whole life looking to be accepted as a result of that?
And also choosing people in my life who were emotionally unavailable.
That's right. And in other words, you're so addicted to being rejected that, and you've never been able to be successful with love for that reason. So you're safer with rejection and hate than you are with acceptance and love. You see, the ego is a funny thing. It can thrive on either one, or both. In other words, the ego is like being God, right? It draws its energy from reacting to something wicked. So in other words, if someone's cruel to you, that makes you resentful. It displaces a forgiving self and puts into you a judgmental self, and a self that's dependent on judging, but that's pride coming into you through that experience with that wicked person, do you see? Now, so pride has two sides of it, king and judge, because other pride sees itself as the king of the universe, and to be God, you have two qualifications that make a person God: king and judge. See? So some people have rose-colored glasses and have everybody looking up to them and loving them and doing wonderful things, and everybody loves them and they thrive on that, loving and being loved. Some people make it that. I couldn't, it make me sick, you know, personally, because it was so false. But some people are not very good with love, and some people are safer with hate, because after all, there isn't any love anyway. When you look at it very carefully, it's all hypocrisy. You're very astute. You see that love isn't love. It's all hate anyway.
Well, I
see?
noticed what happened. Jesus, how do I put this? Having these kinds of people that are emotionally unavailable in my life has been like I've made it a life's effort to get some kind of rise, emotion out of them. But by the same token, after I've gotten a rise, it's like I kind of resent it having to go that far. And also, it's like I almost lose a certain amount of respect for them because I finally got it.
Yes, you manipulated love out of them. In other words, what kind of love is it if you finally get it that can be manipulated? I mean, if it's not given free will, it's not given out of free will, it isn't love, it's not satisfying. So you're going to be frustrated with that love anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, but then there's a resentment that follows that.
Well, that frustration is the resentment, see?
There's a resentment that follows that.
Like I said, there is no love. Because you see, there is no love. You discovered it isn't love because what you can manipulate, what the kind of love that you need is a result of a desperation and a manipulation for it. See? But part of that cycle is resentment, because there is no love, because even if you get it, see, even if you get it, you find that somehow it's very disappointing.
Yeah, never enough.
There's never enough, or there's something wrong with what it was. And you have contempt for the person. You almost have, like you have a power over that person you hate. Because you have contempt for people that are weak like that give you what you want.
So how do you reverse that process?
Well, how do you reverse the process? I think there's no how. I think it's an understanding here that you're addicted to resentment, and you're addicted to being addicted to rejection. And that you act in such a way as that the end result of everything you do is disappointment and rejection. See? Because you're addicted to being angry and resentful.
No, it doesn't seem always to work quite that way. My situations have been that it's kind of like, okay, now don't fall in love with me kind of thing. But then I do everything to make the person fall in love with me, even though they're emotionally unavailable kind.
Right.
And then when they do, it's kind of like I say, well, I told you so, don't do that kind of thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Not quite. Say it again.
It's kind of like,
in other words, what you're saying is that resentment, when you were a young kid, and your parents send you off to school and to camp because they couldn't be bothered with you because they didn't know they couldn't love you or wouldn't give you love. You felt rejected, didn't you?
Sure.
All right. Now, what accompanies the feeling of rejection? What emotion?
Oh, sadness.
Resentment.
Resentment. Anger.
Now listen.
Rage.
What have I been saying through these 5 segments? That if you hadn't been resentful, you would never have been violated. If you've never been violated, you would never have lost love. And listen, I'm saying it again, even in this wise. Listen carefully again. That whenever you experience temptation, parents rejecting you, temptation's cruel. Children should have love. Obvious rejection is obvious cruelty. See? Okay, child feels not wanted, like a person. She's getting the psychological message: oh, you're nobody, you're not worth anything. Get out of my life. Here's a school, or here's a camp you can go to. Get out of my hair. You see that and resent it. Now, had you not resented the fact that you were rejected, like, remember I was a little kid, and I said, I've come through life without. I have hardly any memories because I don't remember being violated. There are little children who could pet a lion and say, nice little kitty, and some little children are terrified by that lion, right? Because the child that can pet the tiger and be unafraid of it, even though it's a fierce thing, knows no danger because somehow it's still innocent. Does no fear. See? The child's been violated, knows fear. The child that knows fear, knows terror, has needs. It has needs for everything now. Slowly, as it grows up, it becomes needful for everything in the world because it's lost the fulfillment in itself. I'm saying to you, it wasn't this way, had you not resented your rejection, you would have not needed love. But you did resent your rejection, and that resentment separated you from love, but you had love all along. Had you not resented your parents, you would not have known the need for love. But since you did resent your parents, the temptation stuck you. You got impaled by it. It separated you from divine love. Now there's something has grown up inside you, that's nature that we were talking about, that cries out to be nurtured by the very thing that violated you. In other words, the bottom line of all your experiences have to be resentment. Whether you get love, you're damned if you get it, and if you're damned if you reject it.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, because what happens most of the time, I'll leave first before I'm left, so that it doesn't happen most of the time.
So in other words, so you're not rejected. You do the rejecting.
Yeah. And even if I stay,
you're becoming what you hate.
Yeah, because even if I stay, there's a part of me that's withdrawn.
What about children? You don't have children?
Yeah.
You feel you do the same thing to your children?
Basically, I'm beginning to recognize that through my meditation.
You've become so much what you hate.
I'm becoming my mother.
Exactly.
It's almost like the yin and yang.
There's no love in you, don't you see? There's no love in you.
Don't tell me that. That doesn't make me feel real great.
No. But I'm not here to make you feel great. I'm here to make you feel terrible.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
If I was to make you feel great, I'd be a liar.
Yeah.
See, it would be a lie. You're not great. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last segment of this program here for this week, but don't be afraid of knowing that something's wrong with you. It's not a put down, because it should be a breath of fresh air, in a sense, because if you can't see what's wrong with you, you can't see what you need. I was telling my wife the other day, I said, don't be afraid to face up to your faults and your weirdnesses and wickedness and your impatience and your cruelty and your mean-spiritedness. Because you've always blocked that out. So you're going on being the same way. You rejected the truth. The first truth that you see about yourself is the awful truth. It's got to be awful, because in your pride and in this intrigue-laden life you've lived, you've been building a sense of who you are and compensating for what you are. See? Hiding from reality, making yourself feel good when you're not. Having high opinions of yourself which are not. See? And you're caught up in the whole process of not knowing as a way of being. See? And not knowing you're wrong, you're right. But point is, it's the first truth. And it's so important. The first truth is negative. Because your whole life you've been denying the truth that there's something wrong with you. So you're denying God. If you see you're self-sufficient. You've been rejected, but no, you look for love from people, but the love of people doesn't replace the love of God. All it does is pump up your ego if you get it. And then you feel unclean, like somehow that's not it, and angry. Like that the people who love you have somehow betrayed you or robbed you of repentance. It's really robbed you of something. It's given you a substitute love. And here they are loving you, and you don't feel good about that. If you're sensitive, you'll feel contemptuous of such love. Because everybody who loves you and gives you a good feeling about yourself is a grace robber. They rob you of seeing the first awful truth about yourself, which is you're no damn good. It doesn't mean to say you're going to be no. Doesn't mean to say that you're going to be no damn good all your life. It's a truth you've got to face. It's called humility. It's humbling. Yes, you're right. I'm wrong. How can you know? How can this need ever be fulfilled if you keep denying that you have a need? How can you be right if you ever keep denying that you're? If you keep denying that you are wrong. So it is a very important experience. It is not negative. The first truth is negative. Now, if you'll admit that you're wrong, a very strange thing will happen. You're no longer denying the truth anymore. And when you're not denying the truth, you're accepting it. And when you're accepting it, you're changing. It's that simple. If you keep denying it, then you're changing for the worse. Because there's only two forces that control this world. If you reject the truth, you've accepted the lie. And your life is built on it. Emotions, anger, resentment, rage, judgment. Everything that you are comes out of reacting to lies and cruelty and deceptions. Right? Reacting to the hypocrisy of your mother, father. Reacting to the cruelty, lies, deceptions. Obvious lies, not so obvious lies. Obvious cruelties, not so obvious. Cruelties disguised as love. Cruelties not disguised at all. Your whole life revolves around evil and lies and deceptions. And you're made of that, and you want that, and when you reject it as a child, that's what's in you. That's the nature in you that's looking for love, and it's the wrong kind of love. You're looking in all the wrong places. Isn't that right? And you're not going to be happy if you're a real human being, if your destiny is to be a real human being, you're not going to be happy with that love. What you'll really be happy is with, you're not seeking love, not looking for love, not looking for accolades and glory. You just do. And the minute you stop doing that, you found the love. The minute you realize the love is not in the world, then what has made you realize that the love is not in the world is the love that you've been looking for. See? And all that love becomes unimportant. You don't give a damn what people think, and all of a sudden you can start being yourself because you don't care what people think. You see? Yes.
I meditate, and I've experienced through being still, the calmness that comes over me and being in the moment. But that's in the morning. And then as I go through my day, if there's occasionally I'll try to speak to maybe a relative or a cousin or something. And always when I try to speak of being in the moment, there's a confusion that sets in.
You speak to other people about being in the moment?
No, not very often. Just like I have a cousin.
Don't talk about it to people much. You
Well,
don't want to let them know what you're
at that
doing.
point, there's doubt seems to settle in, and all of a sudden becomes like just an idea. It becomes idealistic, like being in the moment all the time is just an idea. It's not real.
Well,
it seems like
your mind talks,
it can't happen.
If the part of your mind that's the lower part of your mind talks you out of that, then you have to suffer. The Bible says something interesting about that. It says, "Be in the moment unceasingly." Those are my words. Pray. Commune with God. That's what praying is, isn't it? But how do you commune? Look, you're either premeditating, like premeditated murder. You think about this thing all the time, right? I mean, tell me something. I mean, don't we think about things all the time, especially the things we want? Let's say sex. I mean, can't it be that you think about that damn stuff all the time? You know, that's all you think of is sex, right? I know what's on your minds. Your whole life revolves around getting it. Gentlemen, right? Everything. So you can be thinking about something all the time, can't you? You can premeditate or you can meditate. Now, all I'm asking you to do is to meditate unceasingly which is the opposite to premeditate. If he says that to me, I'll say that to him. In your mind, you're premeditating. You can do that. Why can't you be objective and be in a world where the light teaches you rather than the darkness speaks to you? You could do that.
Yeah. I think you've answered my question.
Good. Okay. Don't these half an hours go quickly? One quickie. Real quickie question. Okay.
Mr. Masters, how does one deal with a
Get
trauma?
off your knees, ammonia man.
How does one deal with a trauma of resenting your father when you were a little kid, watching him come, every weekend?
I know it.
Yelling,
you have a lot of hate
screaming.
in you, don't you?
I think I do, and I, took 39 years. I guess
I don't
to
care if
realize-
it took 39 years. It can be overcome in 39 minutes.
Okay.
When you're ready. There's no how to. In other words, I don't have a manual. How to overcome rage. Page 6. You know how they sell those books? No, it's not like that at all. Is it everything in this book, How Your Mind Can Keep You Well? I have others too, but this is the primer, as we say in England. There's something about this book, and even there's something about me. I have a level of consciousness, as you can see. I'm not an educated man. I have no degrees. Thank you very much. I don't want any. See? Learning cramps my style. Reading cramps. I write books. But then you say, well, if that's the case, why do we want to buy your books? Well, it's because I want to bring you to a level of consciousness as you read. And I want you to start to understand what I'm saying, and eventually you'll understand that you don't need to read very much. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but once you've found what I found, the learning is all by itself. The scripture says that, you need not have any man that teach you, for I will send the Holy Spirit, and he will instruct you in all things. See? That the way of God is not through man's lips, because you can only, man's lips and woman's lips, they lie. There's nothing pure, nothing. You can't learn it from the outside. You can't experience it. But you can experience it from the inside, but the inside experience will teach you to experience the outside properly, so that you go through experience, but experience doesn't go through you. It's like going through a pit of slime with wriggling snakes, and walking through that pit of snakes with a white uniform on, and coming out the other side not bitten and clean. It can happen because you can go through experience. What I learn from experience, I unlearn experience. My first part of my life is learning. Then I realize, then it takes you so far. Learning brings me to understanding. If I'm going to use learning in its proper way, I'm going to discover truth through it. I'm going to find the right words which have the right keys to another dimension of knowing things without words. And that's what you were born with. You have that ability to know without words. And the outer teacher must bring you to the inner teacher, and I give you a little push, and I'm not needed anymore. And then you will grow like Moses, and that's what we need, a nation of Moses. We need a nature of Jesus type people. See? People who are strong from within, not just merely parrots and imitators, mimics, mimes. Okay? And so therefore, I would exhort all of you, please, get the book, How Your Mind Can Keep You Well. And if you can't get if you can't read, you get the tapes as well. But there's something different than the tapes than the book, but they're very similar. So there's 3 cassettes in this tape, in this cassette holder, and it will teach you, it will bring you to a state of consciousness where discovering without learning is possible. So that what you read after you discover has more meaning to you. It helps you to discover more. So that every time you read something, you don't remember it, you discover through it. And you won't remember how you arrived at it because you will have forgotten the means that got you there. See? Please write to the Foundation of Human Understanding. If you don't have the money, $33.50, including the mail, well, we'll send it to you for whatever you can afford. The address will be held up, so rush and get your pencils and papers out. And, well, this is the last week in Los Angeles, Channel 18. I'm sorry we can't afford it. Not many people sent money, but next week we'll be on TV in the morning at 6 o'clock, if I can get 500 people at least with $10 at least pledging. So write to me right away. Thanks for listening. And satellite people, keep listening.